Welcome to Explain Movie, where movies are more than just entertainment. Every frame hides a clue, every scene carries a deeper meaning, and every story holds secrets waiting to be uncovered. From explosive blockbusters and mind-bending science fiction to chilling horror, dark thrillers, and forgotten cinematic gems, here we go beyond the surface to reveal hidden details, shocking fan theories, clever Easter eggs, behind-the-scenes secrets, and untold stories that most viewers never notice. Because the greatest mysteries in cinema aren't always hiding in plain sight. This isn't just watching movies, it's discovering what lies beneath them. Subscribe to Explain Movie and experience cinema like never before. Henry Turner is the son of Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann, linking the original trilogy to a new storyline. Brenton Thwaites brought youthful determination and optimism to the role. His character mirrors many of the qualities that made Orlando Bloom's Will Turner so appealing in earlier films, including courage, loyalty, and a willingness to challenge impossible odds. Through Henry, audiences were introduced to a new protagonist capable of carrying the franchise's adventurous spirit forward. Playing opposite Thwaites was Kaya Scodelario as Karina Smythe. Scodelario had earned recognition for the television series Skins and later gained international attention through the Maze Runner film series. She had built a reputation for portraying intelligent, resilient, and independent characters. Karina Smythe stands out among the franchise's female characters because she's defined primarily by her intelligence and scientific knowledge. She's an astronomer and navigator whose understanding of the stars becomes essential to the story. Scodelario brought confidence and determination to the role, helping create a character who could stand alongside Sparrow without simply serving as a romantic interest. Her performance reflected modern storytelling trends favoring stronger, more complex female protagonists. One of the film's most memorable performances came from Javier Bardem as Captain Armando Salazar. Bardem was already one of the most respected actors in the world before joining the Pirates franchise. His career included acclaimed performances in films such as No Country for Old Men, Skyfall, Beautiful, and Before Night Falls. His Academy Award-winning portrayal of Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men had established him as one of cinema's most intimidating villains. Bardem brought considerable dramatic weight to Dead Men Tell No Tales. His character, Captain Salazar, is a ghostly Spanish naval officer obsessed with revenge against Jack Sparrow. Unlike previous Pirates villains, who often balanced menace with humor, Salazar is portrayed as a tragic and relentless force driven entirely by hatred. Bardem's intense screen presence helped make the character memorable despite the film's lighter adventure tone, and his performance elevated many scenes by giving the story a genuine sense of danger. Returning to the franchise was Geoffrey Rush as Captain Hector Barbossa. Rush had portrayed Barbossa since the original film and remained one of the series' most beloved characters. Long before Pirates, Rush had established himself as one of Australia's greatest actors through films such as Shine, for which he won the Academy Award for Best Actor, as well as Shakespeare in Love, Elizabeth, and Quills. Throughout the franchise, Barbossa evolved from villain to anti-hero to reluctant ally. In Dead Men Tell No Tales, Rush delivered one of the character's most emotional performances. Barbossa's storyline introduces unexpected layers of humanity and ultimately becomes one of the film's strongest emotional elements. Rush's ability to balance humor, authority, and vulnerability once again demonstrated why Barbossa remains a fan favorite across multiple installments. The film also featured the return of Orlando Bloom as Will Turner. Bloom became internationally famous through two major franchises in the early 2000s, The Lord of the Rings and Pirates of the Caribbean. His portrayal of Turner helped anchor the original trilogy, providing a heroic counterpart to Jack Sparrow's unpredictability. When Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales was released in 2017, it arrived at a unique moment in Hollywood history. The film wasn't simply another blockbuster sequel, it represented a continuation of one of the most influential adventure franchises of the 21st century. Although it didn't revolutionize cinema the way the original Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl had in 2003, Its release demonstrated the enduring cultural power of a franchise that had helped redefine the modern blockbuster. To understand the cultural significance of Dead Men Tell No Tales, it helps to first understand the impact of the Pirates franchise as a whole. Before the first film premiered in 2003, pirate movies were generally considered a risky investment. For decades, Hollywood studios believed pirate adventures were commercially unreliable. Several pirate-themed films released throughout the 20th century had struggled financially, creating a perception that audiences simply weren't interested in the genre. The success of The Curse of the Black Pearl completely changed that belief. The franchise revived interest in pirate stories worldwide and introduced a new generation of moviegoers to a genre that had largely disappeared from mainstream cinema. By the time Dead Men Tell No Tales was released 14 years later, the Pirates series had become one of Disney's most valuable global properties. The film's arrival also highlighted another major trend in modern filmmaking, the dominance of franchise entertainment. During the 2010s, Hollywood increasingly focused on interconnected universes, sequels, reboots, and recognizable intellectual properties. Dead Men Tell No Tales exemplified this approach. Rather than introducing an entirely new concept, the film built on years of established mythology, characters, and audience familiarity. Its release showed how major studios relied on long-running franchises to attract international audiences. The Pirates brand remained recognizable across continents, languages, and cultures. While some film series performed strongly only in specific regions, Pirates maintained broad global appeal thanks to its combination of action, fantasy, comedy, and adventure, and this universal accessibility contributed significantly to the film's cultural reach. The movie also reflected changing audience expectations around nostalgia. Throughout the 2010s, many successful films and TV series capitalized on viewers' emotional connections to older properties. Dead Men Tell No Tales embraced this trend by bringing back beloved characters like Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann. Their return generated excitement among longtime fans who had followed the franchise since its earliest entries. Nostalgia became one of the film's most important cultural functions for many viewers. The Pirates series was closely tied to childhood memories and early experiences with blockbuster cinema, and seeing familiar characters return after years of absence created a powerful emotional response. The film effectively served as both a continuation of the story and a celebration of the franchise's history. One of the most significant cultural contributions of the Pirates franchise remains the character of Captain Jack Sparrow. By 2017, Sparrow had become one of the most recognizable fictional characters in the world. His influence extended far beyond cinema, showing up in theme parks, toys, costumes, video games, books, memes, and countless forms of merchandise. Dead Men Tell No Tales reinforced Sparrow's status as a modern pop culture icon. Even people who'd never watched the films could often recognize the character's appearance, speech patterns, and mannerisms. Few characters created in the 21st century achieved a comparable level of global recognition. The film also contributed to ongoing discussions about legacy characters in franchise storytelling. Hollywood increasingly faced the challenge of balancing older fan-favorite characters with new protagonists. Dead Men Tell No Tales tried to address this by introducing Henry Turner and Karina Smythe while keeping Jack Sparrow as a central attraction, an approach reflecting a broader industry trend visible across many major franchises during the period, as studios sought ways to attract younger audiences while preserving what existing fans loved. The film became part of a larger conversation about how long-running franchises evolve across generations. The movie's visual style and supernatural themes continued to shape audience expectations for fantasy adventure films. The Pirates series had established a unique blend of ghost stories, mythology, historical settings, and action spectacle, and Dead Men Tell No Tales expanded this formula through Captain Salazar and his ghostly crew, who introduced new supernatural elements into the franchise. The imagery associated with Salazar's crew are their partially destroyed bodies and flowing, underwater appearance generated widespread discussion among fans and visual effects enthusiasts, demonstrating how advances in computer-generated imagery allowed filmmakers to create increasingly imaginative fantasy characters. The film also contributed to the ongoing popularity of maritime adventure settings. Although pirate-themed films remain relatively uncommon compared to superhero movies, the Pirates franchise helped maintain public interest in seafaring adventures, reminding audiences of the appeal of treasure hunts, mysterious islands, cursed artifacts, and voyages into uncharted waters. Internationally, Dead Men Tell No Tales highlighted the growing importance of overseas box office markets. By 2017, Hollywood studios increasingly depended on global audiences for financial success, and the Pirates franchise proved especially successful in regions like Asia, Europe, and Latin America. The film's international performance showed how blockbuster entertainment had become a truly global phenomenon, with its themes of family, adventure, redemption, and heroism transcending cultural boundaries and allowing audiences from diverse backgrounds to connect with the story. The production of Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales was one of the most ambitious and technically demanding filmmaking projects Disney undertook during the 2010s. As the fifth installment in a franchise that had already generated billions of dollars worldwide, expectations were enormous from the start. The filmmakers faced the challenge of honoring the legacy of the previous movies while introducing fresh ideas that could keep the series relevant for a new generation of audiences. Behind the scenes, the production involved years of planning, extensive visual effects work, difficult location shoots, and countless creative decisions that shaped the final film. Development of the project began shortly after the release of Pirates of the Caribbean, on Stranger Tides in 2011. Although that film was financially successful, many critics felt the franchise needed a creative refresh. Disney wanted the next installment to recapture some of the energy, humor, and emotional storytelling that had made the original trilogy so beloved. One of the most important decisions involved choosing new directors. Instead of bringing back a previous filmmaker, Disney hired the Norwegian directing duo Joachim R. Tilde Sederling and Espen Sandberg. The pair had earned international recognition for the acclaimed adventure drama Kon-Tiki, which was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film. Their experience with ocean-based storytelling made them attractive candidates for the Pirates franchise. Kon-Tiki had demonstrated their ability to create large-scale maritime adventures while maintaining a strong sense of realism and character. Disney hoped their fresh perspective would help revitalize the series while preserving the elements audiences loved. R.A. Sandling and Sandberg approached the project with enormous respect for the franchise's history. They frequently spoke of their admiration for the original Pirates film and expressed a desire to recapture its sense of wonder, mystery, and unpredictability. One of their primary goals was to balance larger-than-life fantasy elements with emotional, character-driven storytelling. The screenplay went through several revisions during development, with multiple writers contributing ideas before the final version was completed. The filmmakers wanted to create a story that connected directly to earlier installments while remaining accessible to viewers who might not remember every detail of the franchise's mythology. A major focus became the relationship between Henry Turner and his father, Will Turner, building the story around a family-driven quest. Other writers aimed to create emotional stakes that would resonate with audiences beyond the action sequences and visual spectacle. Filming officially began in 2015, with much of the production taking place in Australia. The country's diverse landscapes provided an ideal environment for creating the exotic locations featured throughout the movie. Disney had previously filmed portions of other major productions in Australia, and the nation offered both experienced film crews and attractive production incentives. One of the primary filming locations was the Gold Coast in Queensland, where large sets were constructed to represent pirate ships, harbours, and various island environments. The production transformed sections of the area into elaborate 18th century settings filled with detailed props, costumes, and practical effects. Shooting extensively in Australia also let the filmmakers take advantage of the region's natural beauty. Many coastal scenes benefited from stunning ocean views and dramatic landscapes that enhanced the film's adventurous atmosphere. Creating the ships remained one of the production's biggest challenges. The Pirates franchise had always emphasized practical craftsmanship wherever possible, and although computer-generated imagery played a significant role, the filmmakers also constructed large portions of ship decks and other physical environments. These practical sets allowed actors to interact with tangible surroundings rather than relying entirely on green screen technology, resulting in a greater sense of realism and immersion during many action sequences. Cast members often commented on how helpful these practical environments were for their performances. Perhaps the most technically complex aspect of the film involved Captain Salazar and his ghost crew. Javier Bardem's character required groundbreaking visual effects work to achieve his unique appearance. Other filmmakers wanted Salazar to look as though he existed partially underwater even while walking on dry land. To create this effect, Bardem performed scenes wearing motion capture equipment while visual effects artists later enhanced his appearance digitally. His hair appears to float as though suspended in water, while parts of his body look torn apart by supernatural forces. The visual effects team spent countless hours refining these details. Every movement had to feel both realistic and unnatural at the same time, and the challenge was creating a ghostly appearance that remained believable. Within the established visual language of the Pirates universe, Salazar's crew presented an even greater challenge. Each ghost pirate had a unique design reflecting the manner of their death, as some appeared partially invisible, while others seemed shattered or distorted. These effects required close collaboration between makeup artists, costume designers, performers, and visual effects specialists. Johnny Depp's return as Captain Jack Sparrow naturally attracted significant attention during production. By this point, Sparrow had become one of the most iconic characters in modern cinema. Depp had spent more than a decade developing and refining the role, making him deeply familiar with the character's behavior and personality. Many crew members noted that Depp often stayed in character between takes, helping maintain the distinctive energy associated with Sparrow. His improvisational style continued to shape numerous scenes throughout the franchise, with some of Jack Sparrow's most memorable moments emerging from spontaneous ideas rather than strictly scripted dialogue. One particularly interesting challenge involved recreating a younger version of Jack Sparrow for a flashback sequence. The filmmakers wanted to show an important moment from the character's past, which required Depp to appear decades younger than his actual age. Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Men Tell No Tales follows a classic adventure structure while simultaneously serving as both a sequel and a partial reboot for the franchise. The film combines treasure hunting, supernatural threats, family drama, and pirate mythology into a story designed to reconnect audiences with the spirit of the original trilogy. While the narrative introduces new protagonists, it stays deeply connected to the legacy characters and unresolved storylines established in earlier films. The result is a tale that balances nostalgia with new adventure, using familiar storytelling techniques while expanding the mythology of the Pirates universe. The film opens with a sequence that immediately establishes the emotional core of the story. Years after the events of At World's End, Will Turner remains trapped aboard the Flying Dutchman, cursed to ferry souls lost at sea. His son Henry Turner secretly visits him while serving in the British Navy. During their meeting, Henry reveals that he's discovered a way to break the curse through a legendary artifact known as the Trident of Poseidon. This opening serves several important narrative functions. First, it reconnects audiences with a beloved character from the original trilogy. Second, it introduces Henry as the film's primary hero. Third, it establishes a central objective that will drive the entire plot. Most importantly, it provides strong emotional motivation. Henry's quest isn't driven by wealth, fame, or adventure. He wants to save his father. This family-centered motivation creates an emotional foundation that distinguishes the story from many traditional treasure hunts, and the audience immediately understands Henry's goal and can emotionally invest in his journey. After establishing Henry's mission, the narrative shifts toward introducing the film's main antagonist, Captain Armando Salazar. Through a combination of present-day events and later flashbacks, the audience learns that Salazar was once a feared Spanish naval commander who dedicated his life to eliminating pirates. Years earlier, a young Jack Sparrow tricked Salazar into sailing into the Devil's Triangle, a supernatural prison from which escape was believed impossible. Salazar and his crew died and became ghostly entities trapped within the cursed waters. This backstory provides a foundation for the film's central conflict. Unlike villains motivated by greed or conquest, Salazar seeks revenge, and his obsession with Jack Sparrow drives nearly every decision he makes, creating a highly personal conflict rather than a purely ideological one. The plot gains momentum when Jack Sparrow experiences a period of personal decline. Unlike previous films, where he often appears clever despite his eccentric behavior, Dead Men Tell No Tales portrays him as unusually unlucky and defeated. His crew has largely abandoned him, his reputation has diminished, and he struggles to maintain control of his life. In a moment of desperation, Jack trades away his magical compass, a decision that becomes one of the most important turning points in the narrative. Throughout the franchise, the compass has symbolized destiny, desire, and personal identity, and by giving it away, Jack unintentionally breaks a supernatural barrier and releases Salazar from the Devil's Triangle. This event functions as the story's inciting incident. From this point on, Salazar is free to pursue his revenge, setting the main narrative into motion and forcing the various characters toward an inevitable confrontation. The film then introduces Karina Smythe, another key protagonist. Karina is a brilliant astronomer and scientist who possesses knowledge crucial to locating the Trident of Poseidon. Unfortunately, her intelligence leads others to accuse her of witchcraft, placing her in constant danger. Narratively, Karina serves several purposes. She provides information necessary for the treasure hunt, challenges traditional assumptions about women in adventure stories, and creates a dynamic partnership with Henry. Her scientific approach contrasts with the superstitious worldview often associated with pirates, creating an interesting tension throughout the story. As the narrative progresses, Henry, Karina, and Jack gradually form an uneasy alliance, their shared goal becoming to find the trident before Salazar can destroy them. This creates a classic adventure framework in which multiple groups race toward a powerful artifact. The middle section of the film follows a familiar quest structure. The heroes travel across dangerous seas, solve clues, evade enemies, and uncover pieces of forgotten history. These sequences provide opportunities for action, comedy, and character development while steadily moving the plot toward its climax. An important narrative technique used throughout this section is the gradual revelation of information. Rather than explaining every mystery immediately, the screenplay introduces questions and answers them over time, letting the audience slowly learn more about Salazar, Karina's past, and the trident itself. One of the most significant twists occurs when Karina discovers a truth about her parentage. Throughout the film, she carries a diary and clues connected to her unknown father, and eventually it's revealed that Captain Barbarossa is actually her father. This revelation transforms Barbassa's role within the narrative. Until this point, he functions primarily as a powerful pirate leader operating according to his own interests. Once the truth emerges, his priorities begin to change. The revelation adds emotional depth to a character who has often been defined by ambition and self-preservation, and the father-daughter storyline becomes one of the film's strongest emotional elements. It humanizes Barbarossa and creates a personal stake in the conflict beyond simple survival. The audience witnesses a character who has spent much of his life pursuing power suddenly confronting responsibilities he never expected to face. As the story approaches its climax, all narrative threads converge around the search for the Trident of Poseidon. The artifact itself represents ultimate power over the sea and possesses the ability to break every curse connected to the ocean. While Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales is often remembered for its action sequences, supernatural spectacle, and swashbuckling adventure, beneath the surface lies a surprisingly rich collection of themes and symbolic ideas. Like many fantasy adventures, the film uses magical artifacts, curses, ghostly enemies, and epic journeys to explore universal human experiences. Themes of family, redemption, identity, destiny, sacrifice, mortality, and the passage of time are woven throughout the narrative, and the movie also employs numerous visual and narrative symbols that deepen its emotional impact and connect it to the broader mythology of the Pirates franchise. One of the most important themes in the film is the power of family bonds. Unlike some previous entries in the series, Dead Men Tell No Tales places family relationships at the center of nearly every major storyline. Henry Turner embarks on his quest because he wants to save his father. Will Turner's motivation isn't wealth, glory, or adventure. He's driven entirely by love and loyalty. This theme gives the story emotional weight, since the audience can easily understand Henry's determination given that the desire to protect and reunite with loved ones is universal. Throughout the film, Henry repeatedly risks his life because he refuses to accept that his father's fate is permanent. The relationship between Henry and Will also symbolizes hope. Even though Will was trapped by an ancient curse and separated from his family for years, Henry refuses to give up. The story suggests that genuine love can survive distance, time, and even supernatural obstacles. A second major family theme emerges through the relationship between Karina Smythe and Captain Barbarossa. Neither character initially realizes their connection, but their eventual discovery transforms both of them. Barbarossa, a man who spent most of his life pursuing power and survival, suddenly faces the reality of fatherhood. This storyline explores the idea that family can reveal hidden aspects of our identity. Barbarossa's entire perspective changes once he understands who Karina is, and his priorities shift from personal gain toward protection and responsibility. The film suggests that people are capable of growth even late in life, and that family relationships often become catalysts for personal transformation. Closely connected to family is the theme of redemption. Several characters seek some form of redemption throughout the story, with Barbassa's arc representing the clearest example. Throughout the franchise, he's frequently acted out of self-interest, and while he occasionally assists the heroes, he remains morally ambiguous. In Dead Men Tell No Tales, however, Barbassa ultimately sacrifices himself to save Karina. This act represents the completion of a redemption journey spanning multiple films. He can't erase his past mistakes, but he can choose to perform one final selfless act. The film presents redemption not as a denial of past wrongdoing, but as a willingness to make better choices when given the opportunity, and Barbassa's sacrifice becomes meaningful precisely because it contrasts with the selfish behavior that often defined him. Captain Jack Sparrow also experiences a subtle redemption arc. At the beginning of the film, Jack is portrayed as lost, unlucky, and disconnected from the legendary figure he once was, having lost much of his confidence and purpose. By the end of the story, however, he regains both his ship and his sense of identity. This journey suggests that redemption is sometimes about rediscovering who we truly are. Jack doesn't become a completely different person. Instead, he reconnects with the qualities that originally made him successful. Another central theme is identity. Nearly every major character struggles with questions of who they are and where they belong. Henry seeks to understand his connection to his father's legacy. Karina searches for the truth about her family and her place in the world. Barbassa confronts an identity he never knew existed. Jack struggles to maintain his reputation and sense of self. The theme of identity is symbolized most clearly through Jack Sparrow's magical compass. Throughout the Pirates series, the compass functions differently from an ordinary navigational tool. Instead of pointing north, it points toward what a person desires most. As a result, the compass becomes a symbol of inner truth, revealing a person's deepest motivations and desires. When Jack abandons the compass, he symbolically abandons part of himself, a decision that triggers Salazar's release and sets the story's central conflict in motion. The narrative suggests that losing touch with one's identity can have serious consequences, and Jack's eventual recovery of purpose parallels his reconnection with the values and instincts that define him. The film also explores the theme of destiny versus free will. The trident of Poseidon serves as a powerful symbol within this conflict. According to legend, it possesses control over the sea and the curses connected to it. Many characters believe destiny has trapped them within circumstances they cannot escape. Will Turner appears destined to remain aboard the Flying Dutchman forever, Salazar appears destined to remain consumed by revenge, and Henry appears destined to grow up without a father. Yet the story repeatedly demonstrates that individuals can challenge fate through determination and courage. The destruction of the trident symbolizes liberation from predetermined paths by breaking the source of supernatural control, and the characters reclaim the ability to shape their own futures. The film ultimately argues that destiny isn't absolute, and that people have the power to change their lives through choice and sacrifice. Mortality and the passage of time form another important thematic layer. Unlike the earlier films, which often emphasize youthful adventure, Dead Men Tell No Tales frequently reflects on aging, legacy, and the consequences of past actions. Jack Sparrow is older and less successful than before. Barbassa confronts the possibility of leaving something meaningful behind. Will Turner has spent years trapped by a curse. Even Salazar is essentially a ghost from the past seeking vengeance for old wounds. These elements create a sense that time has passed for the characters and the world around them. One of the defining characteristics of Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, is its impressive visual presentation. Since the franchise began in 2003, the Pirates films have been known for combining grand adventure, supernatural fantasy, and large-scale spectacle. By the time the fifth installment entered production, audience expectations for visual quality had become extraordinarily high. The filmmakers responded by creating a movie that embraced both the established visual identity of the franchise and the latest advancements in cinematic technology. The result is a film filled with striking imagery, elaborate visual effects, dramatic lighting, detailed production design, and carefully crafted cinematography that brings the world of pirates, curses, and legends to life. The visual approach of Dead Men Tell No Tales begins with its commitment to scale. From the opening scenes, audiences are presented with vast oceans, towering ships, expansive coastlines, and enormous supernatural environments. The filmmakers wanted viewers to feel they were entering a world larger than ordinary reality, a sense of scale that has always been important to the Pirates franchise, and one the fifth film continues by constantly emphasizing the size and grandeur of its setting. One of the most notable visual elements is the film's color palette. Earlier Pirates films often balanced warm tropical colors with darker supernatural tones. Dead Men Tell No Tales continues this approach but places greater emphasis on contrast. Bright blue oceans, golden sunlight, and colorful island environments frequently give way to the cold, gray, ghostly imagery associated with Captain Salazar and his crew. This contrast serves an important narrative purpose. The warm colors often represent life, freedom, adventure, and hope, while the colder tones associated with Salazar symbolize death, revenge, and supernatural corruption. By visually separating these worlds, the filmmakers help audiences immediately understand the emotional atmosphere of each scene. Lighting plays a critical role throughout the film. Many sequences use natural-looking sunlight to emphasize the beauty and freedom of the open sea, with daytime scenes often featuring strong highlights reflecting off the water to create a sense of adventure and possibility. In contrast, scenes involving supernatural forces frequently use darker lighting schemes with heavy shadows and muted colors. The filmmakers use darkness not simply to create fear, but to establish mystery. Ghost ships emerge from fog-covered waters, moonlight illuminates cursed locations, and flickering lanterns reveal hidden dangers within pirate hideouts. These lighting choices reinforce the franchise's blend of fantasy and horror elements. The visual design of Captain Salazar is perhaps the film's most distinctive achievement. Unlike previous Pirates villains, Salazar appears trapped between life and death. His body seems partially destroyed, and his hair constantly flows as if submerged underwater. Even when standing on dry land, he appears connected to the sea that claimed his life. This design required an extraordinary combination of practical performance and digital effects. Javier Bardem's facial expressions and the movements provided the foundation, while visual effects artists enhanced his appearance with ghostly details. The result is a villain who feels both human and supernatural. Salazar's crew extends this concept even further. Each ghost pirate has unique visual characteristics reflecting the circumstances of their death. Some appear fragmented, while others seem partially invisible, with their bodies constantly shifting and moving in unnatural ways to create an unsettling presence whenever they appear on screen. These visual designs contribute significantly to the film's atmosphere. Rather than relying solely on traditional monster imagery, the filmmakers created ghostly figures that feel tragic and terrifying at the same time, reminding audiences that these characters were once living sailors before becoming victims of supernatural forces. The cinematography frequently emphasizes movement. Adventure films depend on momentum, and Dead Men Tell No Tales uses dynamic camera techniques to maintain energy throughout the story. During action sequences, the camera often moves alongside characters, creating a sense of participation and immersion. Sword fights, ship battles, and chase scenes frequently employ sweeping camera movements that showcase both the action and the surrounding environment, rather than focusing exclusively on individual combatants. and the filmmakers often reveal the broader scale of the conflict. This approach helps maintain the epic feeling that defines the franchise. One of the film's most memorable visual sequences involves the bank robbery early in the story, in which an entire bank building is dragged through a town by horses. The sequence combines physical comedy, practical effects, and digital enhancements to create a uniquely absurd action set piece. Visually, the scene reflects the franchise's willingness to embrace imaginative spectacle. The camera frequently pulls back to reveal the sheer ridiculousness of the situation while still maintaining enough close-up detail to preserve the humor and excitement. The result feels distinctly Pirates in tone, balancing chaos with entertainment. The film also continues a franchise tradition of using the ocean as a visual character. Water appears in nearly every major sequence, serving not only as a setting but also as a storytelling tool. Calm seas often precede moments of tension, while storms accompany danger and conflict. The visual effects team devoted considerable attention to the behavior of water throughout the film. Waves, storms, underwater environments, and supernatural ocean phenomena all required advanced simulation technology, since the filmmakers understood that audiences would immediately notice unrealistic water effects, making authenticity essential. Perhaps the most visually spectacular moment occurs during the climax, when the sea parts into two enormous walls of water. A sequence representing the film's most ambitious visual achievement, one that immediately evokes mythological and biblical associations while creating a setting unlike anything previously seen in the franchise. One of the most important, yet often overlooked, aspects of Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales is its use of music and sound. While audiences frequently remember the film for its action sequences, visual effects, and memorable characters, much of its emotional impact comes from what they hear rather than what they see. The soundtrack and sound design work together to create atmosphere, enhance suspense, establish character identity, and amplify the sense of adventure that has defined the franchise since the beginning. Without its carefully crafted audio landscape, many of the film's most iconic moments would lose much of their power. The musical legacy of the Pirates of the Caribbean series is one of the strongest in modern blockbuster cinema. Since the release of The Curse of the Black Pearl in 2003, the franchise when Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales was released in May 2017, it entered theaters carrying enormous expectations. As the fifth installment in one of Disney's most successful franchises, the film faced the difficult challenge of satisfying longtime fans while also attracting new audiences. The Pirates series had become a global phenomenon since the release of The Curse of the Black Pearl in 2003, but by 2017, some critics and moviegoers questioned whether the franchise still had enough creative momentum to justify another sequel. As a result, the film's reception became a fascinating mixture of praise, criticism, nostalgia, and debate. Commercially, the movie performed well, although it didn't reach the extraordinary heights achieved by some earlier entries in the series. It still became one of the highest-grossing films of 2017, earning nearly $800 million worldwide and demonstrating the continued global popularity of the Pirates brand. Interestingly, the film's strongest performance came from international markets. While North American box office numbers were lower than those of previous installments, audiences in Europe, Asia, Latin America, and other international territories continued to embrace the franchise. This reflected a growing trend within Hollywood during the 2010s, where major blockbusters increasingly relied on overseas audiences for financial success. Many industry analysts viewed the film's box office results as proof that Pirates of the Caribbean remained one of Disney's most valuable global properties even after more than a decade. Captain Jack Sparrow continued to attract audiences around the world. Critical reception, however, was far more divided. Professional film critics generally gave the movie mixed reviews. While many agreed that Dead Men Tell No Tales was entertaining, they also argued that it struggled to recapture the freshness and originality that made the first film such a surprise success. One of the most common criticisms involved franchise fatigue by the fifth installment, Some critics felt the series was becoming overly dependent on familiar formulas. The story once again featured cursed pirates, supernatural artifacts, treasure hunts, and oceanic mythology, and while these elements had always been central to the franchise, some reviewers felt they no longer felt as exciting or innovative as they once did. Several critics argued the film relied too heavily on nostalgia. The return of characters like Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann generated enthusiasm among fans, but some reviewers felt these appearances were designed primarily to evoke emotional memories rather than serve the narrative in meaningful ways. Despite these criticisms, many reviewers praised the film's visual presentation. The cinematography, visual effects, production design, and large-scale action sequences were frequently highlighted as strengths, and critics generally agreed the movie looked spectacular on the big screen. Captain Salazar also received significant praise. Javier Bardem's performance was widely considered one of the film's strongest elements, with critics appreciating the intensity and menace he brought to the role. Many reviewers described Salazar as one of the franchise's more memorable villains, even if some felt his motivations were relatively straightforward. Bardem's performance benefited from both his acting ability and the impressive visual effects used to create the character's ghostly appearance, and the combination helped Salazar stand out among the many supernatural antagonists introduced throughout the series. Jeffrey Rush's portrayal of Barbass received similarly positive reactions. Critics often singled out Barbass's storyline as one of the film's most emotionally effective aspects. His relationship with Karina Smythe added unexpected depth to the narrative and gave the character a meaningful arc. Many reviewers considered Barbass's emotional journey one of the movie's greatest achievements, with his evolution from self-interested pirate to caring father providing some of the film's most powerful moments and offering satisfying development for a character who had appeared throughout multiple installments. Audience reactions tended to be more positive than critical reviews. Many viewers approached the film primarily as a fun adventure rather than a groundbreaking cinematic achievement, and for these audiences, the movie successfully delivered the action, humor, fantasy, and spectacle they expected from a pirates film. Longtime fans especially appreciated the movie's connections to the original trilogy. The storyline involving Will Turner and the Flying Dutchman resonated strongly with viewers who'd followed the franchise since its early years, and for many fans, the opportunity to revisit these characters was enough to make the experience worthwhile. Social media reactions reflected this divide between critics and audiences. Professional reviewers often focused on narrative weaknesses and franchise repetition, while fans celebrated the return of familiar characters, memorable action scenes, and emotional reunions. Johnny Depp's performance as Captain Jack Sparrow generated plenty of discussion, since the character had become one of modern cinema's most recognizable figures and expectations remained extremely high. Some viewers enjoyed seeing Sparrow return for another adventure, while others felt the character lacked some of the energy and unpredictability that defined his earlier appearances. Several critics argued that Jack Sparrow had gradually shifted from an eccentric supporting character into the central focus of the franchise, changing the dynamic that had made the original film so successful. Others felt the character remained entertaining but was no longer evolving in meaningful ways. This debate became one of the most frequently discussed aspects of the movie. Many fans continued to adore Sparrow regardless of any perceived shortcomings, while critics often viewed him as a symbol of the franchise's broader creative challenges. Casca Delario's performance as Karina Smythe received generally positive reviews, with critics appreciating that the character brought intelligence and independence to the story. When Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Men Tell No Tales premiered in 2017, it was already part of a franchise that had fundamentally changed the landscape of modern blockbuster filmmaking. Although the film itself didn't revolutionize cinema the way The Curse of the Black Pearl had in 2003, its legacy and influence extend beyond its immediate box office performance. As the fifth installment in one of Disney's most successful live-action franchises, the movie played an important role in shaping the future of the series, influencing discussions about franchise storytelling, and demonstrating the continued global power of adventure-based cinematic universes. To understand the legacy of Dead Men Tell No Tales, it's important to examine the position it occupies within the broader Pirates of the Caribbean saga. The original film had revived the pirate genre, transformed Captain Jack Sparrow into a cultural icon, and proved that a theme park attraction could successfully serve as the foundation for a major cinematic franchise. By 2017, however, the challenge facing Disney was no longer establishing the brand, it was figuring out how to keep it alive. One of the film's most significant contributions was its attempt to bridge generations. Throughout the story, the narrative shifts focus toward younger characters like Henry Turner and Karina Smythe. While Jack Sparrow remains central to the plot, the film clearly explores the possibility of passing the torch to a new generation of heroes. This approach reflected the broader trend in franchise filmmaking during the 2010s, as many major series faced similar questions about longevity, and as original cast members aged and audiences evolved, studios searched for ways to maintain continuity while introducing fresh faces. Dead Men Tell No Tales became part of this larger industry movement toward legacy storytelling. Although future Pirates films haven't yet followed directly through on that transition, Henry and Karina represented Disney's first major attempt to establish successors capable of continuing the franchise beyond its original cast. Their inclusion showed that the series was actively exploring long-term survival rather than relying solely on nostalgia. The film also left a lasting impact through its treatment of long-running character arcs. For many fans, one of its most meaningful achievements was providing closure to the story of Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann. Ever since at Worlds and in 2007, audiences had waited. The visual effects achievements of the film also left a notable legacy. Captain Salazar and his crew represented some of the most advanced ghostly character design seen in blockbuster cinema at the time. Their partially submerged appearance required sophisticated digital effects techniques that blended live-action performances with extensive computer-generated enhancements. Visual effects artists and filmmakers frequently study major productions like Pirates when developing new technologies and workflows, and the techniques used to create Salazar's crew contributed to the ongoing evolution of digital character creation within the industry. The film's use of digital de-aging technology also became part of a growing Hollywood trend. The flashback sequence featuring a younger Jack Sparrow was one of the more ambitious examples of digital rejuvenation at the time. While the technology would become even more advanced in later years, Dead Men Tell No Tales demonstrated how filmmakers were increasingly capable of recreating younger versions of actors for narrative purposes, a technology that would later appear in numerous major productions across multiple franchises, making the film an early participant in an important shift in visual effects storytelling. The influence of Dead Men Tell No Tales extends beyond film and into popular culture. Captain Jack Sparrow remained one of the most recognizable fictional characters in the world following the film's release. Merchandise, costumes, collectibles, video games, books, and theme park attractions continued to feature the character prominently. The movie helped sustain public awareness of the Pirates brand during a period when many older franchises struggled to remain culturally relevant. Even audiences who didn't actively follow every installment often recognized Jack Sparrow immediately, demonstrating the character's remarkable staying power. One of the most fascinating aspects of Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, is the way different audiences interpreted and emotionally responded to the film. While critics often focus on technical aspects, storytelling structure, and franchise fatigue, audiences generally approach a movie through a much more personal lens. For many viewers, the film wasn't simply another blockbuster adventure, it was a return to a fictional world they'd been visiting for more than a decade. Because of this, reactions to the movie were often shaped by nostalgia, emotional attachment, generational experiences, and individual expectations. Perhaps the most common audience reaction involved nostalgia. By 2017, nearly 14 years had passed since the release of The Curse of the Black Pearl. Many people who watched the original film as children or teenagers were now adults, and returning to the world of Captain Jack Sparrow felt like reconnecting with an important part of their past. For these viewers, Dead Men Tell No Tales functioned almost like a reunion. Familiar ships, musical themes, locations, and characters triggered memories associated with earlier stages of their lives. The film became more than entertainment, it became an experience tied to personal history. This emotional connection explains why many audience members responded more positively than professional critics. While critics often judge a movie primarily as a standalone piece of cinema, fans frequently evaluated it based on how it made them feel, and the return of beloved characters carried emotional weight that couldn't easily be measured through traditional criticism. One of the most powerful audience responses centered on the reunion of Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann. For viewers who'd followed the franchise since the original trilogy, their relationship represented one of the emotional foundations of the series. When At World's End concluded in 2007, Will's fate aboard the Flying Dutchman left many fans feeling both satisfied and heartbroken, and that ending carried a sense of sacrifice and tragedy that lingered for years. Dead Men Tell No Tales finally offered closure by allowing Will and Elizabeth to reunite. Many audience members described this moment as one of the most emotional scenes in the entire franchise, and online discussions frequently highlighted the reunion as the payoff to a story that had begun over a decade earlier. For older fans, the scene represented the reward for years of emotional investment. Another major point of audience interpretation involved Captain Jack Sparrow. Reactions to the character varied significantly depending on generational perspective. For viewers who grew up with the franchise, Jack remained one of cinema's most beloved characters regardless of how much screen time he received or how the story portrayed him. Many fans simply enjoyed seeing Sparrow embark on another adventure, and his humor, eccentric behavior, and unpredictability continue to provide comfort and familiarity. However, some longtime viewers noticed differences in the character compared to earlier films, with discussions often focusing on whether Jack had become less cunning and more dependent on luck than in previous installments. While opinions varied, many audiences interpreted this change as a reflection of age and experience rather than a flaw. Some fans viewed the older, less successful Jack Sparrow as a surprisingly realistic evolution, seeing a character struggling with legacy, reputation, and purpose, themes that resonated strongly with adult viewers who'd grown older alongside the franchise itself. The introduction of Henry Turner generated mixed but generally positive audience reactions. Many viewers appreciated the character because he served as a connection to Will and Elizabeth, and his determination to save his father resonated with audiences who valued family-centered storytelling. Some fans interpreted Henry as a reflection of a younger generation inheriting the responsibilities and challenges of those who came before them, a reading that became especially meaningful for viewers who'd grown up with the original trilogy and were now raising children of their own. In this sense, Henry symbolized continuity. Just as one generation of moviegoers had followed Will Turner's journey, a new generation could potentially follow Henry's adventures. Karina Smythe received particularly interesting audience interpretations. Many viewers praised the character for bringing intelligence and scientific thinking into a world traditionally dominated by pirates, sailors, and warriors. Her role resonated strongly with audiences who appreciated seeing a female character defined by her knowledge rather than simply her appearance or romantic relationships. Younger viewers especially often interpreted Karina as a positive example of intellectual curiosity and independence, and some audiences also viewed her storyline as symbolic of social progress. In a world where many characters dismiss her because of her gender, Karina succeeds through competence and determination. This aspect of the story felt particularly relevant to contemporary viewers. Captain Salazar inspired another layer of audience interpretation. While many saw him as a straightforward villain, others viewed him as a tragic figure trapped by obsession. His inability to move beyond his hatred of Jack Sparrow became a topic of discussion among fans, with some viewers interpreting Salazar as a cautionary example of how revenge can consume a person's identity. Unlike characters such as Barbossa, who evolve and change, Salazar remains trapped by the past, an interpretation that added psychological depth to a character who could otherwise have come across as a conventional antagonist. Barbassa's storyline generated some of the strongest audience reactions in the entire film. His revelation as Karina's further surprised many viewers and transformed how audiences viewed the character. For years, Barbassa had existed in a morally ambiguous space, capable of heroism but often motivated by self-interest, so his decision to sacrifice himself for Karina carried enormous emotional impact. Many fans interpreted this act as the completion of one of the franchise's most satisfying character arcs, and online discussions frequently described Barbassa's death as heartbreaking but appropriate. Audiences appreciated that the character achieved redemption without abandoning the complexity that always made him interesting. The film also resonated differently across age groups. One of the most important aspects of Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, is its focus on character development. While the film is filled with large-scale action sequences, supernatural threats, and spectacular visual effects, the emotional core of the story comes from the personal journeys of its main characters. Nearly every major figure in the narrative experiences some form of growth, transformation, or self-discovery. Themes of family, redemption, identity, sacrifice, and legacy are explored through these character arcs, giving the adventure emotional depth beyond a treasure hunt and battles. The most recognizable character in the franchise remains Captain Jack Sparrow. By the time Dead Men Tell No Tales begins, Jack is no longer the legendary pirate audiences remember from earlier films. He's older, less successful, and struggling to maintain his reputation. His crew has lost faith in him, his plans frequently fail, and much of the fear and respect he once commanded has disappeared. This version of Jack represents a significant departure from the confident trickster seen in the original trilogy. Rather than controlling events through clever manipulation, he often finds himself reacting to circumstances beyond his control. At first glance, this may seem like a weakening of the character, but it actually forms the foundation of his arc. Jack's journey throughout the film is largely about rediscovering his identity. He begins the story disconnected from the qualities that once defined him. The symbolic turning point occurs when he trains away his magical compass. Throughout the franchise, the compass represents more than a navigational tool. It symbolizes purpose, desire, and personal truth. By giving it away, Jack effectively abandons part of himself, an action that triggers Salazar's release and initiates the central conflict. As the story progresses, Jack is forced to confront the consequences of losing touch with who he truly is. By the film's conclusion, Jack regains both the Black Pearl and his sense of purpose. His arc isn't about becoming a different person, but about reconnecting with the adventurous spirit that originally made him legendary. The story suggests that identity can be lost but also reclaimed through perseverance and self-awareness. Henry Turner serves as a primary protagonist and experiences one of the most straightforward heroic arcs in the film. From the beginning, Henry is defined by his determination to save his father, Will Turner, from the curse of the Flying Dutchman. Unlike Jack, who often relies on improvisation and unpredictability, Henry is focused, sincere, and idealistic. His motivation never changes throughout the narrative, but his understanding of what it means to be a hero evolves significantly. At the start of the film, Henry believes that determination alone will let him achieve his goal. As the journey unfolds, he learns the importance of trust, cooperation, and sacrifice. His partnership with Karina and his interactions with Jack teach him that success often requires adaptability rather than simple persistence. Henry's growth is subtle but meaningful. He begins as a young man searching for answers and ends as someone capable of shaping his own destiny. Most importantly, he succeeds not through personal glory but through loyalty and courage. His arc also reflects a broader theme of legacy. As the son of Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann, Henry inherits the responsibilities and challenges of a previous generation, and throughout the film he struggles to live up to that legacy while simultaneously creating his own identity. Karina Smythe undergoes one of the most interesting transformations in the story. When audiences first meet her, she's a highly intelligent astronomer frequently misunderstood by those around her. Her scientific knowledge leads others to accuse her of witchcraft, making her an outsider within society. Unlike many traditional adventure heroines, Karina's primary strength is her intellect. She approaches problems logically and relies on observation rather than superstition, which often places her in conflict with the pirate world, where myths and legends are accepted as reality. Throughout the story, Karina learns to balance reason with belief. She doesn't abandon her scientific worldview, but she becomes more willing to accept that some mysteries exist beyond conventional understanding, a development that allows her to engage more fully with the fantastical elements of the pirates' universe. Her emotional arc centers on her search for identity and belonging. For much of the film, she knows little about her family history, and the revelation that Barbossa is her father fundamentally changes her understanding of herself. By the end of the story, Karina gains not only knowledge but also emotional connection as she discovers her place within a larger family narrative while maintaining the independence that defines her character. Her journey reflects themes of self-discovery and acceptance. Captain Hector Barbossa experiences the most dramatic and emotionally satisfying arc in the entire film. Since the original Pirates movie, Barbossa has been one of the franchise's most complex characters, alternating between villain, rival, ally, and anti-hero, rarely fitting neatly into any single category. At the beginning of Dead Men Tell No Tales, Barbossa appears to have achieved everything he ever wanted. He commands a powerful fleet, possesses great wealth, and enjoys significant influence. Yet beneath the success lies a sense of emptiness. The revelation that Karina is his daughter completely transforms his priorities. For perhaps the first time in his life, Barbossa encounters something more important than power or survival. This discovery forces him to confront aspects of himself he's long ignored, and he begins to care about another person's future more than his own ambitions. As a result, the audience witnesses a level of vulnerability rarely seen from the character. His ultimate sacrifice to save Karina completes one of the longest redemption arcs in modern blockbuster cinema. Over the course of 5 films, Barbossa evolves from selfish villain to selfless father. His death carries emotional weight because it feels earned rather than forced. The audience understands exactly why he makes his final choice. He dies not as a pirate chasing treasure, but as a father protecting his child. One of the most impressive aspects of Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales is the extraordinary attention given to costume design, makeup, production design, and set construction. While audiences often focus on the film's action sequences, visual effects, and characters, much of the movie's immersive quality comes from the world surrounding those characters. Every ship, harbor, island, costume, weapon, and piece of clothing contributes to the illusion that viewers are stepping into a living pirate world. The filmmakers understood that the visual authenticity of the environment was essential to maintaining the identity of the franchise, and they invested enormous effort into creating a world that felt both historically inspired and fantastically imaginative. The Pirates of the Caribbean series has always occupied a unique position between historical adventure and fantasy. The films draw inspiration from the golden age of piracy while simultaneously incorporating supernatural mythology, ghost stories, and legendary artifacts. As a result, the costume and set designers faced the challenge of balancing realism with fantasy. Their goal wasn't to recreate history exactly as it happened, but rather to create a version of the 18th century that felt believable while still allowing room for magical elements and larger-than-life characters. This approach helped define the distinctive visual identity that has made the franchise recognizable around the world. Perhaps no costume in the film is more iconic than that of Captain Jack Sparrow. Since his first appearance in 2003, Jack's outfit has become one of the most recognizable costumes in modern cinema. Every detail of his appearance communicates aspects of his personality and history. Jack's costume consists of multiple layers, including a weathered coat, loose shirt, belts, scarves, boots, rings, beads, and various personal trinkets collected throughout his travels. Rather than appearing carefully organized, the outfit looks as though it's evolved over many years of adventures. This design reflects Jack's unconventional nature. Unlike military officers or wealthy merchants, he doesn't present himself in a structured or orderly manner, and his clothing suggests a man who values freedom more than appearance and experience more than status. The accessories attached to his costume are particularly significant. Many appear to have personal stories behind them, creating the impression that Jack carries pieces of his past wherever he goes. These details help transform the costume into a visual representation of the character's life. The costume designers also subtly adjusted Jack's appearance to reflect the stage of life he occupies in Dead Men Tell No Tales. While the outfit remains familiar, it appears slightly more worn than in earlier films, reinforcing the narrative theme that Jack is no longer at the peak of his legendary reputation. Captain Barbas's wardrobe provides a fascinating contrast. Throughout the franchise, Barbas's appearance evolved alongside his changing status and ambitions. In Dead Men Tell No Tales, he's portrayed as one of the most powerful pirates in the world, and his clothing reflects this elevated position. Elaborate coats, luxurious fabrics, decorative accessories, and rich textures communicate wealth and authority. Barbas dresses more like a nobleman or military commander than a traditional pirate. However, despite his increased sophistication, elements of his pirate identity remain visible. The costume designers carefully balanced elegance with ruggedness, ensuring that audiences would still recognize the adventurous spirit beneath the refined exterior. This visual design supports Barbas's character arc. He's accumulated power and wealth, but has never completely abandoned the pirate life that shaped him. His clothing tells that story before he even speaks. Karina Smythe's costume design serves a different purpose. As an astronomer and scientist, she exists somewhat outside the traditional pirate world, and her clothing reflects practicality, intelligence, and independence rather than wealth or status. Compared to many other characters, Karina's wardrobe appears cleaner and more structured, supporting movement and work rather than decoration. The design emphasizes functionality, reinforcing her identity as someone who relies on knowledge and observation. This distinction helps separate her visually from the pirates surrounding her. Audiences immediately understand she belongs to a different world, one defined by learning rather than adventure. Yet, as the story progresses, her appearance becomes increasingly integrated into the broader environment, reflecting her growing connection to the pirate world. Henry Turner's costumes also communicate important information about his character. As the son of Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann, Henry inherits elements of both parents. His clothing is practical and modest, reflecting his humble origins and sincere personality. Unlike Jack or Barbasa, Henry's wardrobe lacks elaborate decoration, and the simplicity of his appearance emphasizes his role as a straightforward hero motivated by family rather than personal ambition. His costume helps establish him as a relatable protagonist within a world filled with eccentric personalities. The film's most visually striking costume and makeup work is reserved for Captain Salazar and his ghost crew. Creating these characters required a combination of practical makeup, costume design, performance capture technology, and digital effects. Salazar's appearance is unlike anything else in the franchise. His military uniform reflects his past as a Spanish naval officer, symbolizing disciplined authority and duty, but the costume is heavily damaged and distorted by supernatural forces. Torn fabric, missing sections, and unnatural movement create the impression that Salazar exists between life and death. The remains of his uniform remind audiences of who he once was while simultaneously emphasizing what he's become. The ghost crew follows a similar design philosophy. Each pirate's appearance reflects the circumstances of their death and their years trapped within the Devil's Triangle, with some appearing partially shattered while others seem to dissolve into water or air. These designs help communicate character information without requiring dialogue. The screenplay of Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales plays a crucial role in shaping the film's identity. While audiences often remember the movie for its visual spectacle, action sequences, and iconic characters, the script provides the foundation upon which all of those elements are built. Dialogue, character interactions, humor, exposition, emotional moments, and narrative structure all originate from the screenplay. In a franchise known for memorable lines, eccentric personalities, and a unique blend of comedy and adventure, the quality of the writing significantly influences how audiences experience the story. One of the most important challenges facing the writers was balancing old and new characters. By the fifth installment, the Pirates franchise had accumulated years of mythology, recurring characters, and established audience expectations. The screenplay needed to satisfy longtime fans while remaining accessible to viewers who might not remember every detail from previous films. To accomplish this, the script uses Henry Turner as an audience surrogate through his quest to save his father. The film reintroduces important elements of the franchise's mythology in a natural way, since Henry himself is seeking answers and exposition often emerges organically through his conversations with other characters. This approach helps avoid one of the most common problems in large franchise films, overwhelming audiences with information. Instead of presenting lengthy explanations all at once, the screenplay gradually reveals details about curses, legends, and character histories as the story unfolds. Captain Jack Sparrow's dialogue remains one of the defining features of the franchise. Since his first appearance in 2003, Jack has spoken in a distinctive manner unlike any other blockbuster hero. His speech patterns are unpredictable, filled with indirect observations, unusual metaphors, and seemingly nonsensical remarks that often conceal surprising wisdom. In Dead Men Tell No Tales, the writers continue this tradition, and Jack's conversations frequently blend humor and confusion, forcing both characters and audiences to interpret his true intentions. This style helps maintain the character's unique personality while providing many of the film's comedic moments. One reason Jack's dialogue remains effective is that it rarely follows conventional heroic speech. Traditional action heroes often communicate directly and confidently, while Jack tends to circle around ideas, exaggerate details, or deliberately mislead others. This unpredictability keeps scenes entertaining even when audiences are already familiar with the character. The screenplay also uses Jack's dialogue to reinforce themes of identity and reputation. Throughout the film, various characters comment on his declining status, and conversations involving Jack often highlight the contrast between the legendary pirate he once was and the struggling figure he's become. These exchanges add subtle emotional depth beneath the comedy, reminding the audience that even iconic characters can face uncertainty and self-doubt. Henry Turner's dialogue serves a very different purpose. Unlike Jack, Henry communicates directly and sincerely, with his speech reflecting his determination, honesty, and idealism. The writers intentionally position him as a contrast to Sparrow. Henry rarely uses deception or manipulation, instead expressing his motivations openly. This straightforward communication helps establish him as a traditional heroic figure and lets audiences connect easily with his emotional journey. His conversations frequently revolve around family, loyalty, and hope, and through these themes, the screenplay reinforces the emotional core of the narrative. Even during moments of danger, Henry's dialogue consistently reflects his commitment to saving his father. Karina Smythe brings another distinct voice to the screenplay. As an astronomer and scientist, she approaches the world differently from the pirates around her, and her dialogue often incorporates logic, observation, and intellectual curiosity. The writers use this contrast effectively for both characterization and humor. Many comedic moments emerge from the clash between Karina's scientific worldview and the superstitious beliefs of those around her. For example, situations pirates interpret as magic or destiny are often analyzed by Karina through reason and evidence. These exchanges create entertaining tension while also highlighting her intelligence. Importantly, the screenplay avoids reducing Karina to a stereotypical smart character. While her knowledge is a defining trait, her dialogue also reveals vulnerability, determination, and emotional depth, and as the story progresses, audiences gain insight into her loneliness and desire to understand her origins. Captain Salazar's dialogue contributes significantly to his effectiveness as a villain. Unlike Jack's playful unpredictability or Henry's sincerity, Salazar speaks with intensity and purpose. His words are often direct, threatening, and emotionally charged. The screenplay emphasizes his obsession with revenge by ensuring that much of his dialogue revolves around Jack Sparrow, with nearly every conversation reinforcing the idea that Salazar's existence has become defined by hatred. This singular focus makes the character feel dangerous. Audiences quickly understand that Salazar isn't interested in negotiation or compromise, and his dialogue communicates absolute commitment to his goal, increasing tension whenever he appears. Geoffrey Rush's Barbarossa benefits from some of the screenplay's strongest writing. Throughout the franchise, Barbarossa has always occupied a fascinating space between villain and ally, and his dialogue reflects this complexity. He often combines sophistication with ruthlessness, speaking with confidence and intelligence while remaining capable of humor and intimidation. This balance makes his scenes particularly engaging. Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Men Tell No Tales occupies a unique position within both the Pirates franchise and the broader adventure film genre. Released in 2017 as the fifth installment of a long-running series, the film inevitably invites comparison with its predecessors as well as other major adventure and fantasy films. By examining its similarities and differences in terms of storytelling, tone, characters, themes, visual style, and filmmaking approach, it becomes possible to better understand both the strengths and limitations of the movie. Such comparisons also reveal how the franchise evolved over time and how Dead Men Tell No Tales attempted to balance tradition with innovation. The most obvious comparison is with Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl, the film that launched the franchise in 2003. That movie was widely praised for its originality, charm, and sense of discovery. Audiences had few expectations, since pirate films weren't considered commercially reliable at the time, and as a result, The Curse of the Black Pearl felt fresh and unpredictable. Dead Men Tell No Tales operates under very different circumstances. Instead of introducing audiences to a new world, it revisits a universe viewers already know well. This creates both advantages and disadvantages. The film benefits from established mythology, beloved characters, and audience familiarity, but also struggles to recreate the surprise and novelty that defined the original. The first film focused heavily on the relationship between Will Turner, Elizabeth Swann, and Jack Sparrow, with the emotional stakes emerging from personal relationships and relatively simple objectives. Dead Men Tell No Tales attempts to replicate that structure through Henry Turner and Karina Smythe. Like Will and Elizabeth before them, they serve as younger protagonists whose journey unfolds alongside Jack Sparrow's adventures. However, many viewers observed that the chemistry between Henry and Karina, while effective, doesn't quite match the emotional impact of the original trio. The Curse of the Black Pearl benefited from introducing entirely new characters, whereas Dead Men Tell No Tales often relies on audience nostalgia for existing ones. A comparison with Dead Man's Chest and Dead Worlds and reveals another significant difference. The second and third films dramatically expanded the franchise's mythology. Characters such as Davy Jones, Tia Dalma, and Lord Beckett introduced political intrigue, supernatural complexity, and moral ambiguity, and those films embraced increasingly complicated narratives involving multiple factions, betrayals, and overlapping agendas. Some viewers appreciated this complexity, while others felt the stories became overly convoluted. Dead Men Tell No Tales adopts a simpler approach. The central objective, finding the Trident of Poseidon, is straightforward and easy to understand, and the conflict between Jack Sparrow and Captain Salazar is direct and personal. This streamlined structure allows the film to move quickly and remain accessible to casual audiences. Many fans appreciated this return to a more focused narrative, while others missed the intricate plotting and elaborate mythology that characterized the middle entries of the franchise. The comparison highlights a deliberate shift towards simplicity after the increasingly complex storytelling of earlier sequels. When compared to On Stranger Tides, the fourth Pirates film, Dead Men Tell No Tales is often viewed more favorably by audiences. On Stranger Tides focused heavily on the quest for the Fountain of Youth and featured a reduced role for many legacy characters. While that film performed well commercially, some viewers felt it lacked the emotional depth and ensemble dynamics that defined the original trilogy. Dead Men Tell No Tales attempts to address these concerns by reconnecting with earlier storylines involving Will Turner, Elizabeth Swann, and Barbassa. The return of these characters gives the fifth film a stronger sense of continuity and emotional investment, and many fans considered this one of its greatest strengths compared to the fourth installment. The treatment of Captain Jack Sparrow also differs significantly across the franchise. In the original film, Jack often functioned as an unpredictable supporting character who disrupted the plans of both heroes and villains, with his intelligence frequently hidden beneath an eccentric exterior. As the series progressed, Jack became increasingly central to the narrative, and by the time of Dead Men Tell No Tales, he had evolved into the franchise's primary attraction. This change creates both opportunities and challenges. Compared to his portrayal in earlier films, Jack appears older, less successful, and more vulnerable. Some viewers appreciated this evolution, interpreting it as a natural consequence of time, while others felt the character had lost the cleverness that originally made him so compelling. This debate illustrates one of the central challenges facing long-running franchises: how to evolve iconic characters without losing the qualities that made them popular in the first place. The film also invites comparison with other fantasy adventure franchises of the 2000s and 2010s. Series such as The Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, The Hobbit, and various superhero universes similarly combine mythology, spectacle, and character-driven storytelling. Unlike many fantasy franchises, however, Pirates of the Caribbean occupies a unique tonal space, blending action, comedy, supernatural horror, and historical adventure in ways that few competitors attempt.